stuff. Well, this is Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined once again by top trainer Joe Gallagher. Joe, how you doing?
Yeah, not bad, Dan. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thank you, mate. Now, you've always been known as a trainer of world champions. There's been a bit of a gap in the last couple of years, but then you've bagged another two within about 2 months in Natasha Jonas and Paul Butler. You must be over the moon.
I was really pleased. Last year, summer of last year, beginning of the season, my goal was for Callum Johnson, Natasha, and Paul Butler to fight for world titles anyway. And it was unfortunate Callum Johnson had to pull out in January with COVID for the Joe Smith. But I was really pleased that Natasha and Paul Butler got the world title opportunities and then won in spectacular fashion. Natasha with a great knockout, and Paul Butler where he rolled back the ears and put a great boxing clinic on that no one was really expecting, really. And Paul, I was really happy with Natasha because I always felt after I lost to Katie, everyone thought that was her and sort of like kicked to the curb. And then as far as Paul Butler, he was in against Casemiro, got messed around twice. And then for him at 48 hours to take a kid who had beaten a world champion, Tyson Jonas, not many people would have done that for the caliber of the opponent, and to go into the fight an underdog at the bookies, everything else, and for him to box the way he did, I don't think Paul's been given the credit that it's just rewards.
Let's start with Tasha. She obviously has gone up to super welterweight, which is a big jump up. Were you expecting it to be over so quickly against Chris Namas, who's known for being durable?
No, none whatsoever. I said to Tasha, we had a conversation in the gym. I think she was sparring one day and she was looking for the big shots, and said to her, Tasha, you're not a puncher. You're a boxer. That's why you're an Olympian. You're a boxer. To beat the school, you've got to use your boxing, and that's what she did do. So I was really pleased with that.
Yeah.
But because of her Namas's strength and power, I thought down the straight it'd be cause us problems. But Natasha, when she stayed loose and relaxed and let her hands go, like you say, to you go looking for it, doesn't happen, and she just stuck to the boxing and landed the shots, and they were great shots and finished the job.
Are you happy with her now staying up at 154, given, it's not her natural weight, but she's got a world title there now?
Yeah, Natasha always used to say anyone from 130 to 130 to 130 to 140, 147 could get it. But she blindsided us all by going up to 154. Yeah. But listen, we had a conversation with Natasha the other day. There's been some type of dialogue, possibly about Katie Taylor. Has been Natasha being a suitable opponent to go back to Croke Park if Serrano passes on it. There's talk of Clarissa Shields. There's been chat there on it. And I had a good conversation with Natasha in the gym today. Obviously, there's talk about Hannah Rankin, but we don't know how Hannah Rankin's going to be. Our opponent is in hospital, was in a coma. I believe she's out of a coma now, and I don't know how that might affect Hannah Rankin. So that fight might not happen. So I've said to Natasha, if Savannah Clarissa isn't happening, then we'll start making moves, and we'll try and get a Katie Taylor, or we'll take the Clarissa Shields fight. But yeah, Natasha's open for going down to 135 to do Katie, and she's open for Clarissa Shields as well.
What weight would that be at, Shields? Would it be at one? Would she go
Shields
down?
Would come back. Shields would come down. I couldn't get Tasha any higher. Shields would have to come back down.
That's a good fight. Let's see what happens with Paul. Yeah. The fact that Casemiro pulled out or was forced out, however you look at it, twice, does that make it even sweeter that he's had to overcome that to win the title?
Yeah, it was such disappointment. We had a brilliant camp for when we went to Dubai in December, and same again. Obviously, he didn't make the weight. Then they had Joseph Abeko on standby, but they couldn't guarantee us a world title. So to come back and for Paul to be training all the time for Casemiro and wondering whether he'll make it, didn't make it, and then a member of his own team filmed him going into a sauna and a live feed back home. So he undone himself again then. And then this time, obviously, Tyson Jonas, he'd been training out in LA for 8 weeks. They'd got wind of what might happen, and he'd been training for Paul. So as you can see, he was in brilliant shape. But for Paul to be able to adapt and apply and be mentally strong and not feel let down that it wasn't Casemiro. Like I said to you before, that the fact that he went in it and boxed the way that he did and put a good boxing clinic on, I was really pleased for him.
And presumably both you and Paul will be keeping a keen eye on the forthcoming rematch between Noya Inoue and Nonito Donaire.
Yeah, 100%. That's the fight. That's got to happen next. And the winner of that, there's been bits of discussions already. That's the winner. We still might think about trying going over there to it. But with their COVID regulations and restrictions, that might be a problem. But we'll be watching it. And that's the next fight for Paul Butler. Unification against the winner of Inoue and Donaire.
You mentioned Callum Johnson a little while ago. He was obviously very unlucky to lose that shot at Joe Smith Jr. He's now fighting Beterbiev in a unification fight. Anthony Yard, now the mandatory contender with the WBO. I know Eddie Hearn was mentioning earlier today the winner of Richards Buatsi at the weekend may go on to fight Bivol if Bivol doesn't rematch Canelo straight away, if Canelo takes the Triple G fight in September. Where does Callum Johnson sit in this situation now? Is it just kind of biding his time?
Yeah, well, we were in talks with Frank Warren's team last week before. There's a provisional date, early July, for Callum Johnson. We've just got to get the right opponent for Callum Johnson. He's coming back from having COVID. And obviously the letdown of not fighting for COVID. So it's a case of bringing him back, giving him a defence of that World WBO title that he's got, international title. And then let's see where the market lies after that, whether Bivol and Beterbiev fight in unification, or whether Callum Johnson then goes into a huge fight with, say, Anthony Yard. That's a good domestic fight. Would be willing to do that as well. But for Callum Johnson, it's about getting him out again and dusting off the cobwebs. Let's see how he performs. Because even if you watch Joe Smith when he fought his last fight, he hadn't fully recovered from having COVID when he had it in October last year. So Callum Johnson, we don't want to be going into a life or death fight straight away after coming out of that. So thinking of the boxer's safety and well-being at first. So it's bring him back, see how he goes, and tick all boxes, make sure we're okay. And we won't know till on the night, and then after that, then we have to roll with it. And listen, Callum Johnson will fight anyone at that weight division at 175. So who's to say that Bivol might want a quick voluntary defence, or because Callum Johnson was due to fight Bivol in December in Russia, and that fight didn't materialise because we took the Joe Smith fight. So but it's been interesting to see whether that happens. Personally, I'd love to see Beterbiev versus Bivol. I think that's a great fight, a brilliant fight, and everyone just has to hang on in the meantime while that is taking care of business. As far as the UK, that 175, we've got some great fighters. It's great to see Buatsi Richards at the weekend. It's a great London fight. Really looking forward to it. Yeah, obviously Anthony Yard, Callum Johnson. You've got Lyndon Arthur coming back. You've also got Callum Smith. You've got Shakan Peters. There's some real good light heavyweights there. And like I said, the older ones have to sit tight in the meantime while the number ones fight it out. Smith, Beterbiev and Bivol. But yeah, like I say, if we can get Callum Johnson out at the beginning of July, and then if while everyone's waiting around, then we'd like to do the Anthony Yard fight.
And sticking at 175, you said Richards Buatsi or Buatsi Richards is a really good fight. Who's going to win it, Joe?
I can't pick them, to be honest. I think Craig Richards performed really well against Bivol. Some will say it's an under par Bivol, but you look at how well Bivol's gone and done again. Bivol's always a good fighter. I'm sure Richards and Joshua have both sparred each other many times before. Both are usually confident of winning, or they wouldn't have took it. And Craig Richards will be buoyed by his performance with Bivol when he went in and seeing how well Bivol did with Canelo. Josh Buatsi, his last couple of performances, hasn't really performed or took off in the way that we've all expected from the Olympics. Do you know what I mean? He was built for big things, and he's had a couple of wobbles, but he's come through them and won. But it's been a slow burn with Josh Buatsi. But if they get it right this weekend, then obviously they're doing the job right. But it's a good fight, and it's a good London fight, it's a good domestic fight, and a good derby fight. And Eddie Hearn is very good at doing. You've seen Smith and Fowler, Crawler, John Murray. Eddie Hearn likes doing them local domestic derby fights, and this is one in London.
And talking of Bivol, on a scale of 1 to 10, how surprised were you by the result?
I wasn't. I did pick beforehand Bivol to win.
Oh.
I did say Bivol would win. I wouldn't be surprised if he woke up and Bivol had won the fight. With Canelo, you've always got a set of pace. Canelo likes to control the fight with his pace, but you've got to come out and start with him quick 2 or 3 rounds, get him breathing. If you look back and watch the Triple Gs, he starts quick at times, but then he likes to go for walks and control. When he throws, what you've got to do is force him to throw. And when Canelo throws, you've got to catch and return, but not with singles, but with 4, 5, 6, like Bivol did the other day. And then when Canelo tries to dictate things, you don't let him dictate things. You beat him with jab, you make him with good feet, and you frustrate him. And when I was studying Joe Smith for Callum Johnson, when I look back and watched Bivol's performance, Joe Smith, I just thought he was a quality operator, and he did have all the tools to beat Canelo, and he did do.
So then looking at the future for those guys, Canelo's obviously got 2 clear options on the table: an immediate rematch with Bivol, or Triple G back down at super middle for a 3rd time, then Bivol after that. What do you think he should do? What's the sensible choice?
Yeah, I don't think Bivol. He mostly thinks he can do Bivol because the closeness of the scorecards, but the closeness of the scorecards isn't a fair reflection of how well Bivol won. And it's very much like Joshua when he lost to Usyk, saying, well, I only had to win 2 more rounds and it was a draw and all that. But
yeah,
you're not seeing the real picture here. You got beat and beat well. The scorecards were quite, and I think that's the same here. I think Canelo's pride, and most we go, no, I'll do Bivol, or no, I'll go back, do Triple G, and I'll come again. He's got nothing to prove, Canelo, but pride and Mexican pride might be the one where he'll go, no, I want to do it again. If he loses again, I don't think he's stock or anything or drop anymore. He just attempted to put right what went wrong. So I wouldn't be surprised he took the Bivol fight, or he moved back down to 168. And there's guys there like Benavidez and that for him to fight. Gilberto Ramirez is a good fight for Bivol at 175. There's another fighter at 175 who's not many people are wanting to face at the moment as well. But Charlo at the weekend, these kids at middleweight, they're all moving up. There's lots of fights still for Canelo down there. But Benavidez is a really good fight. I'd like to see him in with as well.
It's interesting what you say about the scorecards, because people have been complaining for the last couple of years now about some of these terrible scorecards we see and the effect they have on the boxers who lose and so on and so forth. But no one's really kind of came with the angle that you've just said, that it gives fighters who are closer losers than perhaps they should be a full sense of security or a full sense of hope going forward.
Yeah, I think that obviously the Canelo Bivol, everyone had it 116, 112, or some maybe a little bit more of even, but the 115, 113, it's made everyone Canelo thinking, well, I was only a round out from a draw or 2 rounds from which also it's it really is. But it's very hard that the fact that all 4 judges gave Canelo the first 4 rounds. So Bivol had to win the 7 of the last 8 to win the fight, and he did. And it just makes you think. I understand when there's 3 judges on 1 scorecard out. I get it, because positioning around the ring, like in amateur boxing and the old computer scoring, you'd have 2 on one side, 1 there, 1 there, and this fella wouldn't. So as an amateur, you're always taught throw when the 3 judges can see you throwing. So that's why sometimes a 3rd judge scorecard can be out, because that 3rd judge is seeing it at an angle that the other 2 judges aren't. So when the boxers are moved around the ring and these 2 are fighting, these 2 judges are watching the same fight. So I do get sometimes when there's a 116, 112, 116, 112, and then there's a judge then that isn't in sync with that, but people give him stick. But he'll most probably be the single judge that's just seeing that view and angle on his own when they're going side by side with each other, parallel with each other. Does that make sense, Dan? Yeah. So it's not like there's 4 judges or 5, it's 3. So you've always got the 2 that are facing the action and one that isn't at all times. So that's why there's a third car that isn't right sometimes. So it's a tricky business, isn't it? And they only can judge what they see. They don't have the television. I see the WBC at times have tried to do the right thing by wearing the earmuffs so the crowd don't interfere. I think that is a very, very good thing, and they should continue to do that.
Now, Tyson Fury, obviously from your neck of the woods, great victory over Dillian Whyte at Wembley. Insists, at least at the moment, that he's retired. Do you buy it, Joe? You know him relatively well. Do you think we'll see him again in the ring?
I think Tyson Fury is his own man. I think, like Bob Arum says, well, I'm telling the truth today. I was telling lies yesterday. I think Tyson's that type of guy. Tyson will do what Tyson does. Tyson's in the driving seat. He's the number one in the world. He went over to Germany and beat Klitschko for all the belts. He went over to America and beat one of the biggest punching heavyweights of this era and took the belt off him and beat him and had two more fights with him 3 times. And then he's knocked Dillian Whyte out in front of 94,000. Whatever Tyson Fury does at the moment turns to gold. Whether he decides to fight again or not, I don't know. I think Tyson Fury emotionally will sit back and watch all this play out. Emotionally will see Deontay Wilder fight for the WBC belt, win it, and then it'll be Deontay Wilder versus a Usyk or an AJ, and then the winner of that then. And if Deontay Wilder is standing at the end of all the belts, Tyson will go, well, why am I coming back for? I beat that man so many times. So he may be playing that. But money talks. Tyson's got enough money, and he's got a growing young family there. His wife always said he wants to be around the kids all the time. And what else has he got to prove? He's got nothing left to prove. He's beat the man. To beat the man twice, Klitschko and Deontay Wilder. Do you understand? And Anthony Joshua is fighting Usyk. Usyk's exceptional, and I'm sure Usyk could want that challenge, but does Tyson have to prove himself against Usyk when he's beat Wilder and Klitschko? I don't think so. But like I say, who knows? He might get up one day and go, oh, sorry, let's go and do this. Come on.
Do you feel like you'd like to have at some point in the past or even in the future train like a notable heavyweight in the pros? Is that something that attracts you?
No, not at all. No, I just like to deal with people who have a good work ethic, that believe in what we say we're doing, and they're just coming and get on with the work. I think sometimes these days, heavyweights, it's very rare to get a heavyweight coming to the gym on his own without his family or his entourage or anything else. But that's what works for them. I'm not knocking it. That's what works for them. But our gymnasium, where fighters come into the gym on their own. It's whether you're going to work today or we go and working in a bank or in a food or a petrol station. You don't come with your family. And the gymnasium that we have, it's a shop floor, a factory. You come in, you do your job, you clock off, and you go home, and that's it. I understand the entourages and the people around, but sometimes then I think to myself, well, there come too many people. What are they doing there for? Do you understand? And at the end of the day, it's what's in the corner on the night. Do you know what I mean? It's the chief second, the cut man, whoever's handing up, and that's really all that's needed. But so as a heavyweight, I trained Mike Holden once, former British heavyweight champion, for a fight. Like you say, they're a different breed, they're a different specimen, and I have had opportunities in the past to train some heavyweights in the heavyweight division, but I just didn't think the work ethic or whatever isn't what. I don't know. It just hasn't happened. It's not saying something that I wouldn't rule out, but it just hasn't happened. I think I've got a good enough knowledge of boxing to be able to bring the best out of a good heavyweight.
Well, yeah, exactly. It just seems strange that in your long career, all those world champions, you've never really had a prominent heavyweight. It's just one of those weird things.
Well, let's put it, Daniel, this way. Let's go around. A lot of the heavyweights, the promoters, golden ticket, golden goose, are they?
Yeah.
And one or two of them ain't got to let their golden gooses near me, are they?
Well, I don't know. From a success, like track record point of view, they probably should.
No, they should, but they wouldn't even give that fighter an opportunity to have a conversation because it's such a no-go. But like you say, Paul Butler rolled back the years, Natasha, Callum, Quigg, Crawler, Beefer, as well as all the British and Europeans. But it's listen, they know best. I feel how Robert McCracken has lost control of that corner and now not anything to do with AJ is unbelievable. When Robert with Carl Froch would never have allowed anyone else in that corner. It was Rob's way or the highway, and the fact that he was allowed or was sort of like told, could he bring this trainer in, that trainer? And then in the end, when you see the Usyk fight, there was 3 number ones all shouting different instructions, and that can't have it. You see with Sugar Hill, he brings Andy Lee in, but he's part of the crunk. He knows the setup. He knows the way of thinking. Emmanuel Stewart would have been his way, the highway. All them top trainers that we talk about in America, Ronnie Shields, good fighters. Do you know what I mean? The number ones are in the gym, and that's it. They've learned the trade, and they've put the time and the effort over the years, and they know what they're doing. But to have a number 2 and a number 3 and a number 4 and a number 5, where does it go? Because it's all on the results, isn't it? So there you go. But like you said, promoters have a big say in it as well. Can you imagine Anthony Joshua saying, "Oh, I'm going down to Bolton tomorrow to have a conversation with Joe Gallagher"?
I can imagine him saying it. I don't know if he'd
No,
get very
I
far.
can, but you could.
He probably wouldn't be allowed in the Uber.
No, and I'm not saying it'd be the best thing for Anthony Joshua, but I think I could do as good a job as what anyone else could be able to do out there. But that conversation would be killed stone dead, or either that Eddie, Frank, Barry, whoever in around it would all have a heart attack. So that most probably answers your question, some of them there. And I think the people I have in my gymnasium have come to me because they want to come and be trained by me, not being told to come by me. They're their own people that have their own opinions, and they make their decisions. I manage most of them, and I'll get the deal, whatever's best for them, and I put it to them. And it's up to them and the choices they make. Paul will make it, Natasha will make it, Callum Smith made it going into the World Boxing Super Series. That was their decisions, and that's what you always try and do.
You don't want a manager, I suppose, if you're a fighter who's too close to the promoter, do you? Because you want them close enough to get a good deal, but you don't want them too close that they're going to be, hurting your career to help the promoter out.
Yeah, no, listen, the fighters, like they say, they employ you as a trainer, they employ a managed manager, and they employ a promoter to promote them. And that's everyone's jobs. It's when the promoters then start interfering with fighters and try to be the manager and tell them what's this and that. And I see there's a thing at the moment with Andre Ward, and I see in social media about sanction fees and belts and payments and stuff like that. And I think promoters these days, they're very good at what they're doing. But I think also fighters now that are quite leaned on quite heavy now to use their own social media, like Instagram, like Twitter and everything else, to self-publicize. And it sort of like helps the promoters a little bit, where I don't know how one or two of the promoters today would have coped in the old days when they did have to promote, did have to invite newspapers. And how many times you see journalists at boxing gyms now? Years ago, they were down at Mickey Duff's and Terry Lawless's and the Beckett's gym and all around the country promoting, and scribes coming down and interviews and watching them. And that doesn't happen these days, does it?
No, I think there's a general kind of entitlement now that, people turn up for the events, everything's kind of laid on for them. There's a row of fighters they can interview all in one go. And I'm guilty of this as well, because obviously I do video interviewing mostly now. And I think it's just easier, isn't it? It's all set up for you. Whereas having the initiative to go to a gym, and I mean, I still do it sometimes, but I agree, you don't see as much of it.
No, so I know that there's old journalists that would come to the gymnasium and come up to the gym and watch them sparring, see who they've been sparring, and then can give a good pre-fight prediction or good analysis. Now, Steve Bunce has been up to my gym, must be half a dozen times in the last 2 or 3 months. And I'm like, because he's old school. He comes, he's watching Natasha sparring, he's watching Callum Johnson training, he's watching who else is in the gymnasium as well. Do you know what I mean, Dan? And so yeah, you have all that. And so he can give a fair reflection because he's seen them in there training hard, taking the blows, where others don't. So how can you talk or give a prediction, not saying you, but others out there, and analysis of fights, when you can't be asked coming up and seeing what it is, the work they're doing on it? And sometimes I've been guilty of having a go at TV companies for saying, you're all getting lazy and sloppy. You all used to be up here with cameras and filming and doing things and proper videos. And Ed Robinson used to be in the gym all the time. Adam Smith was in the gym all the Ricky Hatton era. That's all gone now. That doesn't really seem to happen now. It's just fight week and everyone has an opinion.
I think there's a lot more emphasis now placed on, like you were saying earlier, the following a fighter has and the social media presence, and the actual how they fight and how good they are gets kind of lost a little bit along the way.
Yeah, no, exactly. Listen, look at Freddie Roach's gym. He had journalists in there all the time, whether it was for Cotto and McCracken, Manny Pacquiao. Do you know what I mean? They were in there. They were invited there to watch pad sessions, training sessions, everything. And now that doesn't really seem to happen that much no more. Listen, I'm guilty at times of saying press aren't allowed in, because sometimes you can't trust the press that you are allowing in the gym, because they're going away telling tales.
Yeah.
And years ago, this is a thing, and I had this not long ago, years ago, a relationship between the trainer, manager, Mickey Duff, the press or whatever, he'd say to you, you could develop a good working relationship, and he'd go, I've got a scoop for you, I'll give it you. Whoever that might be at the times, whether it was the Mirror, the Sun, Boxing News, Harry Mullen, whoever.
Yeah.
But then the journalist on the same hand would always reward him back and go, I've got something for you. What? Just to let you know, your fighter was seen in somebody else's gym. Your fighter was talking to somebody else. So as you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Yeah. But that's not it now more. Journalists or camcorder journalists or whatever these days get a bit of information and they hold on to it as though it's gold dust and don't give the heads up. They want to be exclusive with something. And I think that's not right. That's not the code of conduct that boxing always was. Do you know what I mean? It's gone, and it's all about being first, as Denzel wanted, whether it's right or whether it's wrong. Just be first, get it out there, and without knowing facts or building up a working relationship with a stable, to understand, or stables, that's gone now.
I think a lot of it's about kind of rewarding who benefits them these days, more so than who you've known for a long time or who you're loyal to. I think there's a lot of who can advance me the most. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I understand that. There's a nice fellow called Steve who does, I think it's Boxing UK. He's a nice guy, and he comes on and he's just getting up and getting going. And I'll give him time and give him interviews, because he's just doing it because he loves it and doing it and doing it. So, like I've said to my fighters, if he gets on the phone, you interview with him. Don't never mind one or two others. They're up and running and gone, and they don't really care. There's an air of expectation that you should do them. And I think, years ago, you asked the manager, could I arrange interviews with your fighters? You come in at the changing room after a fight, and there's like half a dozen cameramen in there. I'm like, well, we're celebrating. This is our area. This is our changing room. Yous all go back and wait like everybody else in the changing room for the interviews of the presser. Does that make sense? Yeah. Everyone's overstepping the mark a little bit, and everyone's just got to go back to a code of conduct.
Yeah, I completely agree. It is that sense of entitlement, isn't it? I think certain people have allowed it over time, and now it's expected on a more widespread basis. But yeah, I mean, hopefully,
and the kids could be having a medical, or they could be crying because they're lost, or they're having stitches, and they don't care. The camera's there, and it's like, this is our changing room. This is for us to celebrate, or for us to be upset, or for him to have his moment before any camera. I think the board should ban everyone from the change rooms, filming wise, unless it's the main platform of Sky, or BT, or The Zone, Channel 5. Do you know what I mean? But everyone else should be banned, because I feel it's quite intrusive at times on fighters' moments.
Yeah, I find it hard to disagree with anything you're saying, to be honest, even though I'm kind of technically on the other side of the fence. But
no, yeah.
No, good stuff. All right, well, Joe, really, really appreciate your time as always, and
no problem.
Best of luck in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, no problem. Like I said, big fights coming up now. Obviously, Callum Johnson out, Mark Heffron, British title fight. Hopefully, to get the winner of a new A and Dinair. Natasha Jonas gets Clarissa, Katie, or Hannah if she decides to carry on or whatever. So yeah, big fights, big nights ahead, and I'm really excited about Clark Smith, who's got to turn pro with me now. He's up before the board. And he'll make his pro debut in September. And in my opinion, he's got to be Manchester's next big superstar.
Great stuff. Cheers, James.